Good evening, this is BelGeode and we are back with some FSX Steam Edition. Woohoo! We are here in Cleveland in the Tomcat. Yes indeed, we are at Burke Lakefront and we were just about to get out of here. So brakes down, throttles up. My rudders are flapping in the breeze, but we'll soon rectify that. And I'm already drifting here. As soon as I get airborne, I will tell you all why we're here at the mistake by the lake. First, let me go ahead and rotate here and get the hell out of here. Upsie-daisy. Gear up. And flaps up. There's the words I've been waiting to hear. Thank you so much. I'm out of here. Okay, let's head over to Lake Erie. Away from Cleveland. I live in Pittsburgh, so naturally Cleveland and Pittsburgh are natural enemies here. Not to mention my ex-wife is from Cleveland, so for me it's like double the reason to be like, eh. But anyway, we didn't come here to talk about my ex or the rivalry between the two cities, even though I'm flying a black and gold plane. Jolly Rogers, by the way, VF-103, one of my favorite squadrons. Next to the puking dogs, of course. No, the reason why I brought you here was because I wanted to talk a little bit about AICarriers. So I've had a number of viewers over the last couple of weeks ask me about AICarriers, and I noticed that as far as views go on my video content, it looks like the ones that are getting the most watches are the ones that have to do with military aviation, in particular naval aviation, the ones that are using AICarriers. And a number of you have been asking me questions about it, you know, how I did this, how I did that, da-da-da. So I figured I would take this time out to not only get some carrier ops in on the lake, but also give you all a little bit more insight into what AICarriers is, how it works, and how you can make it work for you. So that's what we're going to be doing. First, I'm going to go a little bit further out into Lake Erie, and then eventually I'm going to turn around back into the wind, pretty much the same direction that we took off from. You'll see where my little HSI arrow is pointing. That's ultimately where I want to be pointing. We're going to go a little bit further into the lake, though, so that way we're away from the city and any potential lag. Then I'll flip around in the other direction and we can go ahead and get this started here. Well, first off, what is AICarriers? Well, if you are a fan of naval aviation like myself, AICarriers is a small modification that you can install to FSX that will allow you to spawn aircraft carriers at will, basically. It was created by Lamont Clark, and it is currently open source, so if you wanted to and you're, you know, so inclined, you could actually upgrade the sucker. But essentially what it will do for you is allow you to utilize the models that are included with FSX for the aircraft carriers, the destroyers, the frigates, the cruisers, all of that good stuff, and allow you to either pop it down at your location over water or up to like 10 miles out. And pardon me here, I'm going to get a little bit further out since we're talking about 10 miles out here, because I want to be well away from land. So there we go, we are now going supersonic. I'm going to cut the afterburner here in a second. Okay, so in order to use AICarriers, you're going to need to make sure that you've got Java on your computer, 1.5 or up. And you're going to at least want to have FSX SP1, which, to be honest with you, if you've got FSX Steam Edition, you're already good to go, so you don't even need to worry about it. Because the FSX Steam Edition is a combination of SP2 and acceleration, plus, of course, whatever changes Dovetail made to it. So how does it work? Well, when installed, what it does is it adds a menu item on your FSX menu bar at the top, and you activate it by hitting Shift J. So if you'll notice, I just turned to the right course, and there we go. Once we hit Shift J, it gives us a whole list of different configurations and different ships that we could use. I'm going to pick the Nimitz Crowded Deck 2 single carrier. I don't want the whole fleet. And I'm going to set them out about 10 miles ahead of us. So there we have it. They are currently out there. You can't really see them because it's so damn hazy. And they're currently static. So what we're going to need to do next is we're going to need to make them move. How we do that is going to be really simple. We hit Shift J again, and number one option is move forward. There's a number of other options in there as well. You could tell it to full stop. You could tell it to turn to the left, varying amounts of degrees, or turn to the right, varying amounts of degrees, or you can just delete them all together if you're done playing around on the water. Alright, but as you can see directly ahead of me is the USS Nimitz, CVN 68. Now I'm going to tell you straight up, folks, the default carrier models and other ship models that you get with AI carriers is a load of crap. That's why you're also going to want to make sure that your package of AI Carriers 2 is the best one to get, also comes with Javier Fernandez, Nimitz, and Ike. As the name states, it's the USS Nimitz and the USS Eisenhower that you've seen before in my videos. High quality stuff. You have many different options as to what's on the deck, or even if you want the decks to be completely empty. And as I mentioned before, if you get AICarriers 2 downloaded, it comes with it. So you already have those ships as part of it. You really don't need anything else. Now, the other thing too, you may have noticed that I'm also using a landing ship as I make my carrier break here. I was using it on the last video, the Hilo show, and that can also be added in to AI Carriers. Now, it's a little bit more complex to do that, but in the AI Carriers folder, after everything is installed, and by the way, this thing does come with its own installer, so you don't really have to mess with anything if you're not the type to tweak CFG files and all of that stuff. But once you have AI Carriers installed, in the AI Carriers folder, there is another folder called conf.d, C-O-N-F.d. Inside of that folder is where you're going to find the configuration file where you can add additional ships. So let's say, for example, you've got the Bonhomme Richard. Hang on a second while I put my gear down. The Bonhomme Richard can then be added to the list of options that you have in that Shift J menu by simply adding it to the list of carriers that you got there. Now, actually editing the configuration file is relatively easy to do. You can do that in Notepad, or actually I use Notepad++, which I explained before in a DCS how-to video. But what you can do is basically make note of how they have everything listed, and from there just kind of play around with it. You can determine what ships you want where, you can determine how far away from each other the ships are, and so on and so forth. Now, one very important thing that I would call your attention to, when you're adding ships like the Bonhomme Richard and whatnot, download the static versions of those ships. You do not use the version where you can actually pilot the ship. I can't stress that enough. It will not work that way. You have to have the static ships. Now, a good place to find those static carriers and all the various other ships is FSXcarrierops.com. That's a www. I should have the link in the description below, so be sure to read the description. Okay, this is the moment of truth. Let me see if I can land this sucker. It's actually been a while since I've tried to land a Tomcat on the deck here. I'm already off center, so this might be ugly. Hey, we're down! Whoa! Okay, well, we're down. You know what they say, any landing you can walk away from is a good one, so alright. Tail hook, up. Flaps up. Wings fold. And let's get this Jolly Rogers Tomcat off the landing area of the deck and park it over by Cat 2. You'll remember that I selected the crowded deck version, so you'll notice that there's very little room for error here. You see planes on either side. Cat 1 is currently down because there's a whole bunch of Hornets hogging the road. But we do have Cats 2, 3, and 4 that we can use. This is one of the many options that you have with Javier Fernandez's Nimitz and Ike. So yeah, very good stuff. And as more people make different ships, again, remember that you can add that in to the config file so that you've got multiple options. You may have noticed in the last episode that I did, I had the Nimitz as well as the Petutian, which is the refueler ship, and I also had the Bonhomme Richard. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you can do with AI carriers. Alright, well, since we're here in Lake Erie, let's have a little bit more fun. We've done some Tomcattery. How about we check out some Hornetry next, and then a little bit after that we'll fly another one of my favorite Navy planes that's no longer in service. Alright, so the engines are spooling down, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'll be right back with the FA-18 Hornet. And we'll continue the fun on Lake Erie. Alright, so we are back and we are inside the FA-18 Charlie Hornet. As I'm sure you're all aware, the bigger brother to the Hornet, the E and F models, those Super Hornets eventually replaced the Tomcat. Now, we're going to go ahead and get our engines spooled up here real quick, and I'm just kind of playing around with the MFDs. Those of you who watch my DCS World videos, that left MFD should be very familiar to you. That's the radar screen. I've got the HSI on the right one. Not quite sure why my little course marker is missing, though. I'll have to play around with that and see if I can put it on there. And the middle bottom MFD is my fuel. I always like to have that one up because the Hornet does not carry nearly as much fuel as a Tomcat, and it also is a gas guzzler. It'll suck the fuel like water. Okay, still playing around with this MFD here. I'll tweak it a little bit here. But anyway, while I'm getting this all up and running, there's a few more things that I just wanted to mention to you about AI carriers. Some of the things that I like, and of course some of the limitations that AI carriers have. You know, some of the stuff that you can't do with AI carriers. Alright, but we are ready to roll. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and close the canopy. And of course you'll notice the livery on this one is very familiar. This is of course the Jolly Rogers VFA-84. This is the Hornet variety of Jolly Rogers. And we're just going to push up to Cat 2 here. A little bit further, a little bit further. Right about there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and arm the catapult. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Alright, we are ready to roll. Now what you're hearing right now is another thing I really love about AI carriers. Every now and then you'll hear the air boss, I'm assuming, make this little announcement. Of course, it's always the 2010 launch, and as you can tell, the sun is still out, so obviously it's not 2010 right now. But it's just kind of cool that they added that little flavor in there. Okay, and looks like he's done his speech. Excellent. Okay, so we're just about set. So I'm going to go ahead and put it to the nose view. And we're going to brakes down, throttles up. We're going to go for a cat launch. Too sweet. Okay, gears coming up. Very nice. And let's do a circuit or two here. So yeah, as I'm sure you've seen, the steam in the catapult is also modeled. It works on all 4 catapults, provided of course they're all available for use. And when you launch, you will see said steam blowing out the back of the catapult shuttle. Really cool stuff there. In addition to which, one of the 4 elevators works. I believe it is the very rear elevator. I don't know if that's number 4 or number 3. I'm Not really sure. I'll have to check my map of the carrier again. But regardless, you can actually park your plane on that elevator. It goes down periodically to the hangar deck, and then drive your plane off the elevator into the hangar deck and just kind of park it there. You've probably seen me do that before if you've watched any of my previous videos. There you can see the steam is still billowing out of the track. And we're just going to fly past the air boss here. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Okay, now the next thing that I want to show you is not necessarily an AICarriers mod, but it's another little thing that I picked up in the last couple of weeks. This is, of course, the default GPS 500 that FSX has. However, you'll notice mine is a little bit different. It's got some yellow dots on there with purple writing. What that is aircraft traffic. I downloaded an upgraded version of GPS 500 and installed that. Basically, you just replace the file that currently is in your gauges folder with this new GPS folder. It's almost identical, except the terrain shading is a little bit better, and of course now you can actually see traffic. You don't have to use like a G1000 equipped plane. And of course, since this is the default GPS, you can put it in just about any aircraft. Alright, let's see if we can find a carrier. I was looking for it, but I didn't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and turn towards the carrier, and we'll bring this bird in. I really don't feel like flying it for an extended period of time. I'm still a Tomcat guy at heart. As much as I like the Hornet, I have to say, it just doesn't have the same feeling for me as the Tomcat. Now, another little thing that I like in particular about Javier's Nimitz and Ike is the fact that you can use them as replacements for the default carriers that come with the FSX missions. If you've ever played any of the carrier ops missions that come standard with FSX Acceleration or, of course, FSX Steam Edition, you'll notice that the carriers in there are a little bit, how do I put it, lackluster. Well, there is a way that you can replace them. What you'll need to do is you'll actually need to go into your Sim Objects Boats folder, and within that folder you find the default carrier. I think it's VEH_carrier or something like that. Basically, remove that, or just, you know, put it someplace, and then with the Nimitz carrier, you go to the particular variety of Nimitz carrier that you want, which I use the empty deck, that seems to work the best, and rename that folder to VEH_carrier or whatever it is. And basically what that will have the effect of doing for you is when you actually launch one of the FSX carrier missions, you're no longer on that crappy little default Microsoft carrier that they give you. You're on this bad girl. Speaking of which, I think it's time to land. So let's go ahead and put the tail hook down. There we go, looking nice. And we're going to go ahead and drop the gear and flaps. The flaps are pretty much automatic with the Hornet, but you can manually push them down anyway. And we'll start our turn into final. Now, one very important thing that you cannot do with AICarriers is you cannot use them in a multiplayer setting. If you were on a server and you use the Shift-J menu to spawn an AICarrier, only you can see it. Nobody else around you will be able to. However, with the Javier, Nimitz, and Ike, there is a playable version. So if you were so inclined and you're on a multiplayer server, you can play the part of the carrier and have people land and take off on your decks, which I think is pretty cool. Or if you have like a dedicated server, maybe as part of that dedicated server you could have the server itself be the carrier, and then you and all your friends just do carrier ops on it. So technically that's not a part of AICarriers, but you can see where you can make it work to your favor. Alright, let's see if I can do a better landing than with the Tomcat here. Coming in a little hot. That's a one-wire trap. Whoa! Wow. Wonder if I have any tread left on my tires. Sheesh. Well, it doesn't look any worse for wear, so I'm going to take that as a win. Alright, tailhook up, flaps up. Okay, doing good, doing good. And we're going to go ahead and fold the wings. Okay, let's get this sucker off the deck. And just like before with the Tomcat, what we're going to do is we're going to pull this sucker up right behind cat number 2, because I've got one more aircraft to show off. So far, if you've been keeping score, the first aircraft that I showed off, the F-14 Tomcat, that is a Dino Cattaneo, or Cattaneo, I don't know exactly how he pronounces it. That is one of his planes, my absolute favorite in FSX. And then, of course, we've got this, the Hornet, which is the default FSX Hornet. I do have other versions, but I kind of like the default one. It's okay. But coming up next, I've got another Dino Cattaneo plane. This is going to be one of my personal favorites as far as Navy planes go. It is the S-3B Viking, which is made by Lockheed. And again, one of those aircraft that is no longer in service with the Navy. And it's a shame, because it's a damn good plane. So I'll be right back with it. And we are back. This is the Lockheed S-3B Viking. Like I said, this is one of my favorite Navy planes. It's technically retired from service. I believe this squadron, VX-30, is the only squadron left that actually still uses it. Alright, so let's go ahead and get these engines roaring to life here, and then we'll push up to the catapult, go ahead and take off, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the Viking. Now, one thing that I should mention, part of the reason why I decided to use this particular aircraft, is I told you before that I used to play the game Second Life, and in that game I made my money by crafting aircraft, helicopters, airplanes, hovercraft that were flyable within the game. This was one of the ones that I had crafted, and it turned out to be pretty popular, which kind of surprised me considering the fact that it's not like glamorous like a fighter jet or a bomber, although it did have an extremely important role within the fleet. Its specialty was anti-submarine warfare, and I'm going to show you some of the little tricks of the trade that it's got on there after I'm done messing around with the co-pilot seat. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get the launch bar down, and we'll push forward to the catapults. There we go. We'll just drive over the jet blast deflector here. And we might want to stop. There we go. Alright, let's nudge forward just a touch. Right about there. And lock her in position. Okay, JBD is coming up. Perfect. We'll go ahead and unfurl the wings. There we go. This thing is wider than it is long, by the way. The tail also folds up. However, we won't need to fold and unfold it. We will, however, get the flaps down. I'm going to put it to the 3rd setting. So right here we've got the 2nd setting coming up. And we need to see a little bit more red on the wings there. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Alright, she is ready to fly. Okay, so we'll take one final look inside. We're good. Alright, let's go ahead and launch this bad boy. Brakes down, throttles up, and we're off. Gear coming up. I swear, that never gets old. It's a shame I did not have the ability to do that in real life. I would have loved to fly off the front of a carrier. At least just once. Maybe I can make that like a bucket list item. Alright, so, Lockheed S-3B. Started life as the S-3A, actually. It originally flew on the 21st of January in 1972, and it went into Navy service in 1974. As I explained before, it's largely retired. There are a couple notable exceptions. This squadron, VX-30, they still use the Viking, but they don't use it from the ship, so it's land-based now. I think they're at Point Mugu. And the other important user of this aircraft is NASA. Yeah, believe it or not, NASA actually has one version of this aircraft that they use. I don't even know what they use it for. One of the things that this plane could do is you could carry torpedoes underneath. You'll notice the little bomb bay doors opening up there. So you could carry 2 torpedoes and drop them on submarines. We'll just kind of fly overhead there. And we'll close the bomb bay doors. Now, among the other little goodies that this thing had, it could drop up to 59 sonar buoys to search for subs. Or it could use this little thing that I just pushed out the back there. This is the MAD, Magnetic Anomaly Detector. What they would do is they would fly over a patch of ocean, and the 2 guys in the back that were running the sonar equipment would check to see if there were any submarines close by the carrier. Go ahead and retract that there. You'll also notice 2 little tanks on the wings. They use this in the later service life of this aircraft as a refueler. So if you had like a bunch of thirsty Tomcats and Hornets coming back from missions, you would be grateful to see one of these suckers flying orbits around the carrier there. Speaking of which, looks like we're far enough away. We're going to start turning back towards the carrier. Again, this is going to be a really short flight here. I just kind of wanted to give you a quick teaser, so to speak. Okay, so hook is coming down. And we're going to make a turn to the right in a sec here. There we go. While I'm lining up, I'm going to go ahead and get the gear down. Alright, gear's coming down. Love it. So a few more quick facts about the plane. Of course, it had a crew of 4. Pilot, co-pilot, sensor operators, and TACO as they call them. Max speed was 429 knots. Cruise speed about 350 knots. Stall speed a very slow 97 knots. And it had a range of about 2,765 nautical miles, which I believe is further than most fighters out there. Alright, so since we've got a lot of slow speed capability here, let's see if I can line us up. Now the eye point in Dino's aircraft here is a little bit low for my liking, so I'm probably going to modify this slightly before I take it out to fly it again. I'm also going to zoom in here because the default setting is a little too far out for me. But I can see the carrier, and according to the AOA indexer there, we are coming in way too fast. We might want to pull it back a bit. Okay. Well, so far we're looking pretty decent on lineup here. We still got some sunlight out, so I'm not too worried about trying to do a night trap. Okay, now we're going a little too slow. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. Gotta get that yellow on. Come on. Give it some more power here. There we go. Okay, now we're cooking. Loving it, loving it. So yeah, you can see this thing's got all kinds of bells and whistles in there. Electronic cockpit, you know, that sort of thing. Almost like a G1000 type of cockpit. Not quite, though. Militarily speaking, it's not nearly as advanced as some of the other aircraft out there. But then you got to remember it's also no longer in service for the most part. As far as armament goes, you could carry the torpedoes like I mentioned. You could also carry regular bombs, cluster bombs, nuclear bombs if necessary, harpoon missiles, maverick missiles, all kinds of good stuff in this thing. So it was more than just a pretty face. Alright, we are almost there. Nice if I had some landing lights going on that carrier. Ask and ye shall receive. I love it. Perfect timing. Wow, couldn't have done that better myself. Okay, but I think for this one, instead of landing from inside the cockpit, I'm actually going to land from outside the cockpit. This is a rarity for me. But I think that until I make the modifications, this is going to be how I land this sucker. And let's see, what's the verdict? We're a little bit low. So get some more power. And we're down. Wow. I think that was actually smoother than my other two landings. How about that? Cool. Okay, we got the brakes on, so let's go ahead and put the tail hook up. While we're at it, we'll get the flaps up. And as soon as those go all the way up, we will fold the wings. I'm not going to worry about folding up the tail because I'm not going into the hangar this evening. But there we go. Look at that. Look at that. There's a couple more little goodies for you on this plane here. Of course, you can refuel, air refuel that is. And the way that you would do that is with this little unicorn pole right there. It's pretty neat, huh? Now, to get in and out of this aircraft, there was a little door right there. You can see it just forward of the engine there. Close it up. In case you missed it, I'll open it back up for you. There we go. That's how all four guys got into this aircraft. Okay. And this thing did have flares and chaff and all that good stuff, so it could defend itself. And with the pylons, you know, carrying missiles and stuff like that, this thing could actually hold its own. It's kind of like the Navy version of an A-10, except without all the extra armament. Okay, but our little Viking has done its work for the day, so we're going to park it right over here where we parked the other two planes. We'll line up there. Because the other thing that you can do with AICarriers is you can stop the carrier, you can save your game, and then whenever you feel like flying again, you just simply load up that game. Now there's a catch to that. Make sure you save in slew mode and paused, because when you reopen the game, you're going to need to drop a carrier at your location, the way I showed you earlier with that Shift J. Alright, but that should just about do it for me today. I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to go ahead and give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe, that way you'll get notifications as to when I put these suckers online. The usual follow list will be in the credits. So thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all really, really soon. Ciao!